whisper of distant memories. Mara jolted awake, heart racing, her breath catching in the stillness of the room. The darkness was thick around her, warmer than the crisp autumn air outside. She reached for the glass of water on the bedside table, her hands trembling as she took a sip. But even after the cool water soothed her dry throat, she knew sleep wouldn't come again. Not tonight. She moved to the window, looking out at the deserted streets of their small New England town, where the trees had shed their leaves, leaving behind bare branches that scratched at the sky. The memory of the recurring nightmare clung to her mind like a fog. She turned back to the bed, her gaze softening as she saw Zoe, her wife, sound asleep under two blankets, one a patchwork quilt, fraying at the edges, a gift from Zoe's mother years ago. A lump formed in Mara's throat, and without thinking, her eyes welled up. She swallowed back the tears, not wanting to disturb Zoe, and tiptoed downstairs. The living room felt eerie and unfamiliar in the late-night silence. She turned on the TV, keeping the volume low, and settled into the worn-out couch as an old film flickered to life on the screen. Mara's lips curved into a small smile as Zoe's face appeared on the screen, radiant, with her chestnut hair cascading over her shoulders and that smile that had always been her best feature. In the scene, Zoe was holding their dog, laughing as she tried to keep it from licking her face. Even muted, the joy on her face was clear. Mara froze the frame, staring at the image, and her heart ached at the sight of that laughter frozen in time. She looked away from the screen and let her gaze fall on the photos that adorned the walls of their home. Photos from their wedding, from their adventures in the mountains, their honeymoon in Italy, and countless snapshots of their daughters, Lily and Maya. Lily with her curly auburn hair, always full of laughter, and Maya, more serious but with a quiet strength that shone through her dark eyes. The photos told the story of their life together. Years filled with joy, challenges, and the love they'd built one moment at a time. It had been a while since they had seen their daughters. Lily was busy with her own family, balancing her career as a musician with raising two kids. Maya lived on the West Coast, teaching at a university and surfing whenever she could find time. Mara understood their busy lives, but she missed them dearly. Still, she knew they made time when they could, checking in on their moms. Zoe always insisted that they not worry too much, that life was meant to be lived, not fretted over. Mara's eyes settled on a photo from Zoe's childhood, her in the arms of her parents, surrounded by her siblings. Mara had grown up without siblings, but she could see in those photos how Zoe's family had shaped her. And then Mara's gaze fell on the only picture she kept from her own past, a graduation photo, her parents beside her, their smiles proud but tight. They hadn't seen each other since the argument before her wedding to Zoe, when they had tried to pull Mara back into the closet, into a life that wasn't hers. She sighed and let the memories wash over her, wondering how so much time had passed since those early tumultuous days. The estrangement was long settled in her heart, softened by the family she had found with Zoe. Yet, the absence of her parents had left a quiet ache, one she rarely allowed herself to dwell on. Zoe and the girls had become her world, and for that she was grateful. Mara's thoughts turned to their wedding. She got up and dug through the old DVDs on the shelf, her hands finding the worn case she was looking for. She slipped the disc into the player and watched as the screen filled with the image of two young women standing in front of each other, wearing white dresses and beaming with happiness. Zoe's hair had been shorter back then, cut into a neat bob, but the joy in her eyes hadn't changed. The film was muted, but Mara remembered every word of their vows, the promise they'd made to each other under the blooming cherry trees. She remembered the warmth of Zoe's hand in hers, the cheers of their friends, the music that filled the air as they shared their first dance as wives. She could almost feel the gentle pressure of Zoe's lips on hers during that first kiss, the one that had sealed their future together. Their life since then had been full of beautiful, ordinary moments. Moving into their first tiny apartment, where they spent lazy Sundays curled up together, dancing in the kitchen to old records. They'd moved to this house when Lily and Maya came along, filling the rooms with laughter and the chaos of family life. Mara let herself sink into the memories. Christmas mornings spent baking cookies, the forts they built from couch cushions, the late-night talks that stretched until dawn. She could still hear the girls' giggles echoing through the house, see Zoe's face light up when they decorated the tree together each year. The house was filled with those memories, every corner holding a piece of their shared story. She thought about that summer they had taken the girls to the beach where she and Zoe had shared their first date. It had been sunset then, the sky ablaze with oranges and pinks. Zoe had worn a loose white shirt, her hair flowing in the breeze as they walked along the shore. Mara remembered thinking she looked like a vision out of a dream, her laughter mingling with the sound of the waves. They had shared a quiet boat ride at dusk, and Mara had fallen in love right there, surrounded by the scent of salt and sea. But for Zoe, love had struck even earlier, during that fateful night in the city's Grand Theater. Mara, a journalist at the time, had gone to cover a special performance, chasing rumors about Zoe's private life that had set the tabloids ablaze. But the moment she saw Zoe step onto the stage, playing her role with an aching sincerity, Mara's intentions had shifted. She had become captivated by more than a story. She had become captivated by her. They met properly at the reception afterward, Zoe lingering at the edge of the crowd, looking lost among the glittering gowns and tuxedos. Mara had hesitated, but then, encouraged by Zoe's co-star, she had crossed the room and asked her to dance. Zoe had smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and taken Mara's hand. They danced under the chandeliers, forgetting the crowd around them. That night changed everything, setting them on a path that led to years of love, laughter, and shared dreams. Mara's reverie was interrupted by the soft creak of the stairs. She turned to see Zoe standing in the doorway, bundled in her pajamas, her blue eyes, the one thing cancer couldn't take, still shining. Mara quickly brushed away a tear and smiled. "Mara, what are you doing down here?" Zoe's voice was gentle, with the raspiness that the treatments had given it. "Sorry, did I wake you?" Mara asked, trying to sound casual as she got up from the couch. "No, I just noticed you weren't in bed. You've been crying. Is everything okay?" Mara gave a small, reassuring smile. "Just thinking about old times. Happy ones. You were in all of them, of course." Zoe moved closer, her steps slow but steady. "Do I really make up all your good memories?" Mara reached out, taking Zoe's hand, holding it against her cheek. "Every single one," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Zoe smiled, and Mara pulled her into a gentle embrace, feeling the warmth of her wife's breath against her neck. They stood together in the quiet of their living room, surrounded by the echoes of their life, and for a moment it was enough. Mara held on tightly, knowing that no matter what came next, the love they had built would remain, woven into the fabric of their days, their home, and each other's hearts. Mara breathed in deeply, trying to absorb the moment. The world outside felt far away, the nighttime stillness wrapping around them like a warm blanket. She could feel Zoe's heartbeat, steady and familiar, and in that embrace, she found a moment of peace that had eluded her all night. "How are you really holding up?" Mara asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she pulled back to look into Zoe's eyes. There was a depth there that spoke volumes, reflecting both vulnerability and resilience, and Mara felt a pang of sorrow at how much Zoe had been through these past months. Zoe took a deep breath, her gaze steady. "Some days are harder than others. But I'm still here, and that's what matters, right?" There was a flicker of strength in her voice, a determination that always shone through, even on the toughest days. Mara felt a surge of love for Zoe, for her ability to face life with such courage despite everything they were facing together. "Yes, you are," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "And I'm right here with you always." They moved to the couch, where the glow from the TV still flickered softly. Zoe nestled against Mara's side, and Mara wrapped her arm around her, holding her close. Together they watched the muted film, but the scenes faded into the background as they sank into their own thoughts. "Do you remember the first Halloween we spent in this house?" Zoe suddenly said, breaking the comfortable silence. Her eyes sparkled with the memory, and Mara could hear the joy in her voice. "We turned the living room into a haunted house and scared the kids half to death." Mara chuckled, her heart lightening at the memory. "How could I forget?" Lily wouldn't stop screaming, but Maya was a little trooper. She kept saying she wasn't scared, even when she was hiding behind the couch. "Right? And then when we revealed it was just us, dressed up as those ridiculous ghosts." Zoe laughed, the sound like music to Mara's ears. "I still have the photos from that night somewhere. You looked so silly in that sheet." "Hey," Mara protested playfully, grinning at the recollection. "I thought I looked pretty good. Who wouldn't want to scare children in style?" Zoe chuckled, leaning into Mara's side. "You always managed to make everything fun. Even when I was feeling down, you had a way of lifting my spirits." Mara's heart swelled at the compliment. "And you've always been my rock, Zoe. Even now, I admire your strength every single day." They fell into a comfortable silence again, both lost in the warmth of each other's presence. Eventually, Zoe shifted, propping herself up on one elbow to look directly at Mara. "What are you thinking about, love?" Mara hesitated, the weight of her thoughts creeping back in. "Just everything. I think about how far we've come, and how quickly everything has changed. Some days it feels overwhelming." Zoe's expression softened, and she reached out to cup Mara's cheek. "It's okay to feel that way. This journey is tough, but we're in it together. I wouldn't want anyone else by my side." Mara leaned into Zoe's touch, feeling the strength radiating from her. "You're right. Together." The word resonated between them, a reminder of their unbreakable bond. "Let's not think about the bad stuff tonight," Zoe suggested, her smile returning. "Tell me about the places you want to visit once I'm better. I want to plan our next adventure." Mara perked up, grateful for the shift in conversation. "I've always dreamed of going to New Zealand. The landscapes there are breathtaking. Can you imagine us hiking through the mountains together?" Zoe nodded, her eyes lighting up. "Absolutely. We could go to Hobbiton and live our fantasy. You know how much I love those movies." "Yes. And we'd take a million pictures and share them with the girls," Mara said, her excitement bubbling over. "Or maybe we could go back to Italy. Remember that little cafe in Florence? The one with the best gelato?" "Of course." Zoe laughed, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "You practically devoured that entire cup in one sitting. I was convinced you'd burst." Mara joined in the laughter, feeling lighter. "What can I say? Gelato has always been my weakness." They continued to trade memories and dreams, the conversation flowing effortlessly as they revisited their shared past. They talked about their favorite vacations, the silly moments that made them laugh, and even the tough times that had only served to strengthen their bond. As they reminisced, the reality of their current situation faded slightly, replaced by the warmth of their shared experiences and the laughter that filled the air. But eventually, as the film came to an end, the laughter subsided, and they were left in the soft glow of the television. "Mara," Zoe said softly, her voice laced with vulnerability. "Yeah," Mara replied, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "I want to make sure that no matter what happens, you know how much you mean to me. You've been my everything, and I don't want to take that for granted." Zoe confessed, her voice trembling slightly. Mara felt her heart tighten at the sincerity in Zoe's words. "You're my everything too, Zoe. You always have been. I can't imagine my life without you. We've built something beautiful together. And no matter what happens, that won't change." Zoe's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Mara brushed her thumb gently across her cheek. "We'll fight this together. I promise to be by your side every step of the way." Zoe leaned in, resting her forehead against Mara's. "I love you so much, Mara. More than words can express." "I love you too," Mara whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You are my heart, my home, my forever." In that moment, as they sat together in the quiet of their living room, the world outside faded away. It was just the two of them, bound by love and memories, determined to face whatever came next together. As the night deepened and the stars twinkled outside their window, Mara felt a renewed sense of hope. They had weathered storms before, and though the path ahead might be uncertain, their love would be the guiding light that would carry them through. "Let's get some sleep," Mara suggested gently, pulling back to look at Zoe's weary face. "We can dream about our next adventure." "Together," Zoe echoed, her eyes fluttering shut as she settled back against Mara. "Always together," Mara promised, pressing a tender kiss to the top of Zoe's head. They remained nestled together on the couch, comforted by the warmth of each other's presence, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. And as the house settled into silence, their dreams intertwined, painting a future filled with hope and love. A future they would continue to build together, no matter what.